What's up, everybody? The Longevity Game podcast is on the air. How's everybody doing?
We're just going to let this ride on out. I like that. All right, everybody. What's happening? This is Mike Ward here, and this is the Longevity Game podcast. Thanks for joining us today. We are going to talk about some pretty cool studies, some pretty cool things that are happening in science, which is really going to blow your mind, I think. In this episode, I'm going to talk about 3 cutting-edge topics from recent research: drugs that preserve muscle by shedding fat, a non-hormonal male contraceptive pill, and a 4-hormone weight loss compound that could rival bariatric surgery. So how does that sound? This is going to be pretty wild. You know, I prescribe a lot of medications for weight loss in my clinic, and GLP-1s are a big deal. You know, they're a very big deal because they work, right? They've been out for a long time. I think the first one that showed any promise at all was dulaglutide. And it doesn't, not that much promise, but it does show a little bit of promise with weight loss, right? And so they were then looking at other alternatives. They created semaglutide, and at the time, whenever it was FDA approved, it was FDA approved. Name was Ozempic for type 2 diabetes. And then they saw, man, that people are losing a lot of weight on this medication. And so they started FDA trials, FDA clinical trials to get that approved for weight loss, and they eventually did, and it was called Wegovy, right? And then with Wegovy, it was really great because it slowed down your cravings, slowed down digestion, making you fuller longer, and people were losing a lot of weight, you know, and but they were having a lot of side effects. You know, and some of them were really, really bad GI side effects. And so they ended up coming up with another medication called tirzepatide. And tirzepatide worked on more than just your GLP-1 receptor sites. It worked on your GLP-1 plus your GIP. And GIP stands for glucagon-dependent insulinotropic peptide. And so it works similarly by reducing cravings, slowing digestion, stimulating weight loss. And so it's just another way of doing the same thing the other one does. And there was less side effects. So you don't get as much of the nausea and the constipation and the diarrhea and stuff that you could possibly get with the semaglutide. Now, there's still a potential, right? There's still, some people still get a little bit of that GI stuff. But then next came retatrutide. Retatrutide was a triple agonist. And with each new iteration, you get better results as far as weight loss goes, with less side effects. And with retatrutide, also, I've heard it called retatrutide. With retatrutide, you have a third metabolic pathway that opens up and causes just insane weight loss results. And so with retatrutide, it works on your GLP-1 receptors, your GIP receptors, and it opens up that new pathway, a glucagon pathway. And with the glucagon pathway, you see it neutralizes the blood glucose release, and then at the same time causes just insane weight loss, like fat loss. And so I think in phase 2 clinical trials, there was like 90% of the people that went in there with fatty liver disease had almost a 100% resolution of their fatty liver disease. Something like that. It was really, really incredible just because of that new glucagon pathway. But one of the things that happens, though, with these medications is they're finding that up to 40% of the weight loss can be muscle mass right? And so this presents a problem, especially in older adults, because as I've mentioned in the past, once you hit your 40s, you're losing about 1 to 2% of your muscle mass per year if you're not intentionally building muscle, and so that's really, really important. If you think about it, that's up to 20% of your muscle mass gone every decade after you reach your 40s. And so if you're not building muscle, you're losing muscle, right? If you're not growing, you're dying. And that's just how it is, unfortunately. And with these medications, although they help drastically with weight loss, again, up to 24% of body fat can be lost, or 24% of weight, total body weight, can be lost on these medications. Up to 40% of that 24% can be muscle. And so it's really, we got to figure this out, right? And so in 1997, there was this researcher, Dr. Sejin Lee, and he discovered something called myostatin. And so this was really, really incredible because myostatin is a protein that limits muscle growth. So you're genetically programmed to grow only a certain amount of muscle. No matter how much weight you lift, no matter how much protein you eat, your body is pre-programmed to only build a certain amount of muscle. Now you can augment that if you're going to take like anabolic steroids. Obviously, you see these massive bodybuilders who really, really push the limit of what the body is physically capable of, right? Well, with myostatin, if you can turn it off, right? If you can inhibit the action of myostatin, you could literally continue to grow muscle as long as you're on the myostatin inhibitor, right? So, inhibiting myostatin allows muscles to grow and increase energy expenditure, and thereby reducing fat. Because the more muscle mass you have, the higher your resting metabolic rate, right? And so the University of Connecticut researchers, which Dr. Sejin Lee is working at, he noted that mice lacking myostatin have 4 times the normal muscle mass and less fat, right? So note that GLP-1 drugs reduce appetite, they improve glucose control, but also slow gastric emptying and can cause nausea. Well, myostatin inhibitors counterbalance this by promoting muscle protein synthesis, right, and burning more energy. Okay, and so there's currently, there's 3 companies. Actually, there's like 10 companies that are working on some type of iteration of a myostatin inhibitor. So let me just read to you. So I printed out some studies, like normal, and I wanted to read some things to you. Let me find out the biggest. Many major pharmaceutical companies as well as biotech companies are developing drugs of blocking this signaling pathway, the myostatin inhibition, as these drugs have the potential to simultaneously increase muscle mass and reduce body fat. The potential indications for myostatin drug discovery are going to explode in the coming years. How cool. In 2019, they even sent mice to the International Space Station where they studied the mice, whenever you're in anti-gravity or microgravity, you get bone loss, and muscle loss, right? So it says that they sent these mice into space. These molecules, myostatin inhibitors, prevented bone and muscle loss in the mice, even in the setting of microgravity. And so this is like a big deal, right? The renewed interest in targeting myostatin for obesity coincides with the enormous success of GLP-1 medications. One concern has been that up to 40% of that weight loss is not due to fat loss, but rather due to muscle. Yeah. So the University of Connecticut team's research has already shown in the lab in mouse models that myostatin inhibitors cause fat loss. So they are currently examining the possibility of developing that as a future obesity drug that can also preserve muscle. This is going to be huge, guys. I'll tell you how huge it's going to be. Let's see. Eli Lilly, a U.S. drug maker, they're the one that made tirzepatide. They spent $2 billion in 2023 to acquire Versanis Bio's Bimagrumab, which is one of the big dogs in myostatin inhibition. This prevents the activity of a protein called myostatin to help preserve muscle. All right, why would they spend $2 billion on Bimagrumab? Because that stuff is working. It's doing amazing stuff. And they're combining it with Wegovy in clinical trials. And then there's 10 other companies that are actually investing in running studies that are based on myostatin inhibition and other GLP-1 combination medications. So so we have Regeneron. Regeneron is testing its drug Trevogrumab along with Wegovy and another treatment, Garetosmab, in a 3-part study with healthy and obese participants. Let's see. That study is expected to be completed next year. Has a main goal of change in body weight, but also will measure change in fat mass, waist circumference, body composition, and thigh muscle volume. Expected to be completed next year. Another company is Scholar Rock. The drug developer is testing apitegromab, an experimental therapy that targets the myostatin protein in combination with Eli Lilly's Zepbound. And so, let's see, Roche, Swiss drug maker Roche, began a study last year of its experimental drug RG6237 as a monotherapy in people with high body weight. The drug is known as an anti-latent myostatin, works by eliminating an inactive form of the protein from the blood. Another company, Biohaven, is evaluating its myostatin targeting drug Taldagrofabep alpha in an early stage obesity trial. Another one is Keros Pharma. They have a drug KER-065, which targets myostatin and activin proteins, increased lean mass and reduced fat mass in obese mice when given alone and in combination with semaglutide. And then Northstrive Biosciences, and then Veru, then 35 Pharma, Arrowhead Pharmaceuticals, Six Peaks AstraZeneca. All these companies are moving towards therapeutics that target the myostatin pathway as well as the GLP-1 pathways. It's going to be a big deal. Can you imagine? And there's no anabolic effect, meaning that it doesn't hit on any anabolic pathways. It just causes your muscles to grow more than you naturally would grow. It's pretty amazing, It's pretty amazing. And so, yeah, that's going to happen. Let me check this out. That study that Eli Lilly is doing with the Bimagrumab and the semaglutide, the results demonstrated the combination of Bimagrumab and semaglutide therapy lead to greater reductions in weight, body fat, visceral fat, and markers of inflammation compared to either treatment alone. The combination therapy, you're not going to believe this. This is unbelievable. Actually, let me do this. The combination therapy yielded 92.8% of total weight loss from fat mass, compared to when semaglutide is used alone, it results in a 71.8% fat loss and 22.1% muscle mass loss. And the Bimagrumab alone was 10.8% and 15.7% of semaglutide alone. Notably, with the use of Bimagrumab just by itself, 100% of the weight loss was attributed to fat mass, and there was an increase of 2.5% of total lean muscle. So just the Bimagrumab, all the weight that was lost was 100% from fat. And then there was a 2.5% increase in muscle mass, lean muscle. But if you look, let me back it up again. Let me say that again. The combination therapy yielded 92.8% of total weight loss from fat mass, compared to semaglutide alone at 71.8%. A total decrease with both of them being used together, a total decrease in 22.1% of total body weight was lost. And so, that's really, really incredible. It's really incredible. We're actually going to talk about another GLP-1 medication here in a little bit. they're trying to get the total amount of body weight up to 30%, which is comparable to gastric surgery. All right, so we'll get into that a little bit later. Okay, so the Believe Phase 2b study in the American Diabetic Association's late-breaking symposium, researchers presented data showing that adding Bimagrumab to semaglutide resulted in greater reductions in body weight and fat mass. And we just covered all that. The combination produced 92.8% weight loss from fat versus 71.8% with semaglutide alone, and increased lean mass by 2.5%. And so the Courage trial and industry race, again, we covered that. There's about 10 different companies who are coming out with myostatin inhibitors, GLP-1 combinations. And so just look for that. This is really, really incredible. So obviously the pharmaceutical industry sees muscle-preserving weight loss drugs as a major frontier in testing different combinations, And so we're going to see a lot more of that coming down the pipeline. But I think Eli Lilly is probably going to be the first combination GLP-1 myostatin inhibitor with the Bimagrumab semaglutide medication. And so some of the challenge, though, stress. So you want healthier weight loss, right? You want to improve mobility, reduce risk of frailty, and possibly lower doses of GLP-1 drugs, which are going to result in fewer side effects, right? And so that's why these are going to work really well. Especially, like I mentioned, as we age, we're making less muscle. We're losing muscle. It's harder to build muscle. When you take away that, the myostatin, and you inhibit that myostatin pathway, you can just continue to build muscle, which is safe because the older you get, the more muscle you want to hold on to, right? And so this is going to be awesome. The only limitations that we see here is that, these are just early trials. We're not getting a lot of great information because these are just early phase, just seeing if it's safe, Also, we don't know how much things are going to cost. We don't know the side effects, likely they're going to cost it's going to be astronomical. Imagine, whenever you buy a semaglutide, if you were to pay cash for, say, Ozempic or Wegovy or semaglutide, all the same thing, you're going to pay like $800 to $1,000 per month, right? And then with Zepbound, which is also known as tirzepatide or Mounjaro, you're going to pay over $1,000 per month for that. When these things come out, it is going to be so expensive. And no insurance is going to cover this stuff. I can only imagine all the red tape that there's going to be and all the hoops you got to jump through in order to get insurance to approve these medications. So anyway, we'll see. We'll see what happens. The takeaway here is that myostatin inhibitors combined with GLP-1 therapies, they represent a super exciting leap forward, right? Then turning weight loss drugs from fat and muscle shredders into fat targeting, muscle sparing treatments, right? So we'll be sure to keep you guys updated on that right here at the Longevity Game Podcast. All right. So let's see. We're going to switch gears a little bit. All right. We're going to talk real quick. We got a sponsor, Next Level TRT, for which I am the founder and the CEO. So, of course, I'm going to plug my own company. We're one of the fastest growing and highest rated longevity and performance medicine practices in the DFW Metroplex. We have 5-star rating, and there's lots and lots of them. I would highly encourage you to check out our reviews because people have taken a lot of time to leave us some really stellar reviews and just results that they've had overall, which is really awesome. The clinic is just the home clinic is just right outside Fort Worth, and another clinic's opening soon in North Arlington, and with intentions of expanding beyond the state of Texas next year. Next Level TRT offers hormone replacement therapy for both males and females, weight loss programs including FDA-approved weight loss drugs, initial and ongoing body composition scans, nutritional guidance, and even anti-aging peptide treatments, oral and injectable, all prescribed to actual pharmacies. And if you're a Texas resident, schedule your free consultation today at www.nextleveltrt.com. All right, guys. And so next, we're going to talk about non-hormonal birth control. Yeah, You heard that right. Non-hormonal birth control for men, right? The medication is called YCT529. This is a hormone-free pill that temporarily stops sperm production by blocking a vitamin A metabolite. And it's just concluded its safety trial, its first safety trial in humans. And so we're getting closer to a male contraceptive. I don't know if that's a big deal or not, right? Until now, male contraceptive options have remained pretty unchanged, right? Like condoms, vasectomy, that's it. I've had a vasectomy personally, and it took me 15 minutes. I remember I went to a place called Gentle Procedures in Plano, Texas. And when I walked in, I was checking in. They're like, "So, Michael, did you get your Valium? You're supposed to, I'm like, Valium? What Valium?" And they're like, "Well, you were supposed to have been prescribed a Valium to take before the procedure to take the edge off, right?" Well, I never got the Valium, but I was in and out of there in 15 minutes. It was amazing, right? And no pain at all. He used this kind of. It was lidocaine, but there was no needles. It was a compressed air cartridge of lidocaine, and it just, and then that was it. And after that happened, and that did not, there was no pain. I was really wondering when the guy was going to get started, and then when he's finished, he's like, "Okay, we're all done." I'm like, "Are you serious?" And I walked out. I remember walking out, and my wife was like, "Did you change your mind?" Because I was smiling, and I'm like, "No, we're done. That is it. We got it done." And so, which was awesome. It cost like $600. I was in and out in 15 minutes. It was great. And so up until now, really, that's basically all we got for men. We can do condoms or we can do this. The women pretty much carry the burden of preventing the conception, right? Until now, right? So, surveys indicate 75% of men are willing to try new therapies or novel contraceptives, right? And the rationale, apparently, in creating a male birth control is giving men more agency in family planning. And this could rebalance contraceptive responsibility. And is this a thing? Like, if you're a female viewer and you're watching this right now, drop me a comment below. Like, is this a big deal? Like, do you guys care? I'm so curious. Because until now, I've really never heard a woman talk about how I wish guys had birth control, because if that's a thing, I'd like to know, So YCT529, let's talk about it. It's a retinoic acid receptor alpha antagonist, it blocks the receptor for an all-trans retinoic acid, like I said, a vitamin A metabolite, in the testicles, disrupting gene transcription. And gene transcription is required for sperm production. And so it disrupts that, preventing, spermatogenesis, which is the creation of sperm, right? So preclinical studies in mice and non-human primates showed that 14 to 28 days of treatment reduced sperm production, which reversed, actually, after the drug was withdrawn, and there was no major side effects of the medication, all right? So the early human trial was a phase 1A safety trial. It enrolled only 16 healthy men, so it's a very low amount of study participants. And these men were ages 32 to 59, and they had already undergone a vasectomy. And this was just as a precaution, right? So the trial assessed safety and pharmacokinetics, not contraceptive efficacy. So they basically wanted to see if there's any side effects, right? And so participants were randomized to different single doses, 10 milligrams all the way up to 180 milligrams, or they were given a placebo, with some receiving a dose with a high-fat meal to test absorption. All right. So overall, the results showed good bioavailability. Half-life was between 51 and 76 hours. And so this suggests that the pill could be taken maybe once a week or just maybe like every 3 or 4 days. Right. Also, sex hormone levels remained stable, so it didn't mess with, testosterone or estrogen or anything like that. And no major adverse events were reported. So the study, which I read through the Scientific American, notes that non-hormonal nature could limit side effects such as mood or libido changes. However, it does caution that the trial was small and long-term effects are unknown. right? So we're going to need a lot more participants in the next trial. We're going to need a lot longer trial time, So let's see. There are other candidates. This is not the only thing under investigation for male contraceptive. There is a Nest-T gel, which is testosterone plus nesterone, and it's in phase 2 clinical trials, and the Atom Hydrogel implant, which temporarily blocks the vas deferens, which is kind of what you do whenever you get a vasectomy. You just right there at the vas deferens. And then I think that's it. Also, the YCT529, it's different from those other two because it doesn't alter any hormones, right? That's the benefit, right? Potentially avoiding side effects seen with hormonal methods, right? And so, so some of the social benefits include shared contraceptive responsibility, reduced female contraceptive burden, and reversible fertility for men, right? So will sperm count drop sufficiently? We don't even know. It's going to take a long time. We got lots more to go on this, right? And so what does long-term safety look like? That's another thing, right? Larger trials are planned, but this is going to take some time, right? It's going to take it's probably going to take at least 2 or 3 more years to get to the bottom of that. Okay, so, this is definitely a promising step toward male contraception. But again, we're just in the beginning. All right, so just stay tuned. As soon as phase 2 trials of value come through, we'll check it out. We'll bring it back up, circle back around, and check that out. And so, So next segment, we're going to talk about quad hormone weight loss drugs. This is the one I mentioned. This is the one where, like I mentioned, semaglutide works on one metabolic pathway, the GLP-1. The glucagon-like peptide 1. And then tirzepatide, it worked on glucagon-like peptide 1 and glucagon-dependent insulinotropic peptide. And then retatrutide was created, which worked on 3 different metabolic pathways. That's the GLP-1, the GIP, and then the glucagon pathway, which really resulted in that's what really kicked it up a notch. I think they lost up to 24% of total body weight, which is more than, either of the previous 2. But now, this next drug, it is a quadruple agonist. And so it opens up a fourth metabolic pathway called peptide YY. All right, so it's and I think it's a pill. They don't really go into it here in the articles that I've studied, but they do mention that the previous iterations were injectables as a setback, and so they didn't specifically mention that it's a pill. But I did hear from somebody else that it is a pill, and so that's going to be a benefit to a lot of people who do not like to inject. Right, so instead of a once-weekly injection, it'll be a pill, daily pill. So quad hormone weight loss drug. Here's the thing with these medications. Again, like I mentioned earlier, they provide just a ton of weight loss, but up to 40% of that has been shown to be muscle. And so that's really, really important that we get down to this. I like the GLP-1 with the myostatin inhibition better than another, like a fourth pathway to be open for, just regular GLP medication. But anyway, so the hormone quartet mechanism. So the GLP-1 stimulates insulin secretion, slows stomach emptying, and signals satiety. The glucose-dependent insulinotropic peptide, similar to GLP-1, but reduces nausea when you combine with the GLP-1. And so then the glucagon raises blood glucose, but increases energy expenditure and suppresses appetite. And so when that's combined with the GLP-1 and the GIP, its glucose-raising effect is neutralized, leaving its fat-burning properties. Again, that's where that big, major, fat loss takes place. I'm telling you, it's incredible. Retatrutide is really, really incredible. I've taken it myself, and it's unbelievable. So peptide YY is that fourth pathway. So it's secreted after meals. It reduces appetite, it slows gastric emptying, and may directly help burn fat. So researchers at Tufts University engineered a tetra-functional peptide by joining the segments of GLP-1, GIP, and glucagon with a PYY analog. All right, so each segment activates its respective receptor, and this promotes satiety, and this enhances insulin sensitivity, boosting energy expenditure and extending fullness, right? So the Tufts team, their design aims to achieve weight loss results on par with bariatric surgery, like 30%. That's what they're pushing for. Retatrutide is at 24%, so it's close already, right? But even the ones that we were talking about earlier, the semaglutide with the Bimagrumab, that was pretty damn impressive. And so we're not just losing weight, but we're building muscle at the same time. And I don't think they're going to hit that with this, although this is very interesting, right? So by hitting 4 receptors, researchers hope to overcome the individual variations in receptor expression and reduce side effects like nausea. So the approach is still in the preclinical stage, right? It builds on the success of existing triple agonist retatrutide, and as I mentioned, has been up to 24% of total body weight. And so some of the advantages of this particular medication could provide durable surgery-level weight loss, right? It might require less frequent dosing, or, daily dosing of a pill, depending on which route they're going, because I honestly, I've heard both. I've heard either it's a pill or it's an injectable. It might require less frequent dosing. It might preserve bone and muscle mass when coupled with myostatin inhibitors. I mean, this would be amazing, right? This medication with myostatin inhibitors. Now we got something, right? So some of the challenges, though, is that synthesizing a stable peptide that activates 4 receptors, apparently is pretty complex, right? Human trials haven't even begun, right? So long-term safety and cost remain completely unknown, just like the Bimagrumab in the semaglutide. And so we're just going to have to keep paying attention, keep watching the news, watching the trials, and just see what happens, right? So, these multi-agonist drugs are just one piece of a really broad obesity management strategy. Really, because, just think about it. You can't be on these medications forever, right? While you're on these medications, and this is what I tell all my patients whenever I put them on a medication that stimulates weight loss. This is just one piece of the puzzle, right? You can't rely on this only to get you to your goal, because what are you going to do? Stay on it forever? No, during the time you're on these medications, this is the time that you have to really, really refine all your strategies. You gotta do things that are going to help propel you forward even after you get off the medication. So while you don't have, this food noise, talking to you every day, start building habits and routines that once the medication is gone, you can just implement, and then you just keep on trucking. That way you can maintain the weight loss. That's my biggest goal, is, get somebody on and off the medication as fast as possible, right? So it's not just medication, diet, exercise, hopefully one day myostatin inhibitors. That sounds amazing. I can't wait. I cannot wait. So, anyway, conclusion: quadruple action weight loss drugs represent the next frontier, especially when you're adding the myostatin. They aim to combine the best of existing medications in one shot or a pill, offering hope to all those struggling with severe obesity and who want surgery-level results without the surgery. That's another benefit, right? Because anytime you go to surgery, there's always risks. Infection, medical errors. Like medical errors is the 3rd cause of death in the world, right? So just going into surgery and into a hospital for an extended period of time is risky. It's always risky, right? So what if you could get a medication that could give you surgery-level results without the surgery? That's awesome. Anyway, that's about it, guys. Yeah. So let's wrap this thing up. Let's reinforce all those things that I talked about today. Let's talk about the innovative science is targeting both sides of the longevity game. Building muscle while losing fat, giving men more control over reproduction. Guys, thanks for coming and hanging out with me today. I want you to give us a follow. If you're not following the Longevity Game podcast, give us a follow, like, comment, share, tell your friends about us. Also, if you want to contact the Longevity Game podcast, if you have a question or concern about a particular topic or a particular episode, just email us at hello@the Longevity Game podcast. If you're interested in being a guest on the show, just email us at beaguest@the Longevity Game podcast. And if you're interested in supporting the show, then just email us at sponsors@the Longevity Game podcast. And friends, that is it. That is it. I hope you guys have a great week, and we'll see you next time. All right, everybody. And that's a wrap. I'm going to put links to all those things that I read and went over today in the show notes.